Hey, Garage Logic fans, MISCHKE here, slipping in ever so briefly to mention that I have a podcast that comes out every Wednesday and every Friday, twice a week now. The show is pretty much about everything you care about and are interested in and need in your life and want to know more about. I tailored the darn thing specifically to your liking. I tailored it to your loves, to your true passions. That took a long time. I'm spent. You know what I'm saying? Absolutely wasted. Well, yo ding flippin' what you call your whiz-bang highfalutin' hattie ho-ski to each and every one of you out there listening today. My name's MISCHKE. Got a show for you, Going to be doing a little rope-a-dope with a man named Tim Queenie at some point in the hour. He's the rope man. We're gonna tie one on together. I roped Tim into doing an interview with me. I said, don't worry, I'll give you enough rope to say all you need to say, but you give a man enough rope, he'll hang himself. By the end of the interview, he was at the end of his rope. Okay, where am I? Utah had a tornado. The Old West had a tornado. Cowboy tornado. The image of it in the news, it just looked so strange, seeing that Old West backdrop and a tornado. Apparently, it's only the third one they've had. Everybody was so excited and delighted. I know I would have been. I'm a tornado guy. I love tornadoes. I've always wanted a pet tornado. Just in the yard instead of a dog. Beware of the tornado. Have that sign right there. Guy tries to break into my house. Woo, 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 woo. Flying over the neighborhood into some landfill he goes. Stay out of my yard. Yeah, I've always wanted a little tornado. I think they're the monsters of the Midwest, and I like them. They're interesting. I think they have personalities. So whenever I come across tornado news, I get excited, and a tornado in Utah really excites me because Westerns are my favorite form of visual, video, or film entertainment. Picture that tornado in the Old West. Man, I would have liked to have interviewed that tornado. They never stick around long enough to be interviewed. I've tried. But I would have liked to have asked them about this sudden decision to appear in the West. What were you thinking? I was daydreaming over the plains when I thought about breaking my chains, freeing myself from the norms of modern Midwestern storms. 'Cause rules I do detest, and I bolted for the Old West. Thought I'd give a cowboy a ride from this world to the other side. But in the wild land that I seen, folks were few and far between. So while I return with regrets, having only found cattle and pets, there was that strange little high, blowing those creatures high in the sky. But it don't make me feel as proud as sending a cowboy over a cloud. Blown away, yippee-yippee-ki-yay! It is a fact that all that got taken out by this tornado were cattle and some pets. There's some cattle missing and some pets missing. That's it. Where are the pets and the cattle? I'm serious. Where are they? Did they get sent through someone's barn? Were they picked up gently and set down gently so that they could just continue with their lives? That happens sometimes. Where are the pets and the cattle? Now, when aliens are involved, there are mutilations. You've heard about this, the cattle mutilations? Don't know what's going on there, but they apparently, after seeing UFOs near farms or ranches, often find cattle mutilations. That's why I don't want an alien in my backyard. I don't want the beware of aliens sign, even though that would scare some people away. No, I don't want these people mutilated. I just want a tornado. I want them sent out of my yard. And let's face it, if it's smaller than an F1, it's just going to send them into the next neighbor's yard. Just over the fence. Just send them over the fence. Thank you. Thank you, little tornado. What did I name you again? Bo, didn't I? I named you Bo. I wanted to name you after Jimmy Stewart's dog. Remember his poem about Bo from The Tonight Show? You ever see that clip on YouTube? Jimmy Stewart making everyone cry with his story about his dog Bo, who died. Yeah, my tornado would be Bo. Let me tell you what's great about a tornado as a pet, and I'm quite serious about this. You don't have as many mosquitoes. Mosquitoes cannot handle even small breezes. Mosquitoes are terrible at fighting any kind of moving air. They need the air still. So you have a tornado in the backyard, you don't have mosquitoes. Right away, big plus there. Secondly, you don't have to scoop up any crap. Oh, sure, they'll disappear periodically. It's only natural. They'll have to disappear, but they'll come back. Conditions will be ripe, and they'll come back. Sure they will. Cowboy tornado. Actually, if it's going to be a cowboy tornado, and I may get a cowboy tornado, I think it's going to be fastest. Yeah, I think my backyard tornado is going to be fastest. Well, there's a new trend I've been reading about, and it has to do with ways to bring people together, be a matchmaker without using one of these dating apps. And the ticket, according to a lot of younger people, is getting people matched up at weddings. It's the DIY dating scene powered by your married friends. That's right. Couples are reinventing the old singles table at wedding receptions. They're turning their weddings into matchmaking hubs. Oh, it's quite sophisticated. When Melissa Clark and Dominic Morales tied the knot, their celebration was about more than just their own love story. They hoped to kindle a few more love stories. So to help their single guests connect, they created what they called a singles face sheet. That's a real-life Tinder board they put together, complete with LinkedIn photos, Instagram snapshots, little bios. It was really fun, said Melissa, and it worked. Certain guests went on dates afterward. One woman even flew to Florida several times to meet someone she had met at the wedding, and we set the whole thing up. It was a way to turn the usual awkward mingling at a wedding into something more meaningful. Melissa said, apps are okay. They've helped in some ways when it comes to dating, but they've made it harder to meet people organically. We're trying to help people meet organically. Have you folks ever met anyone organically? I guess when you meet that way, I think it's a healthier relationship, 'cause it's organic. I'm not saying we're any better than you, Carl. I'm just saying Carol and I met naturally. No artificial nonsense at all. So we have what I like to call a more organic bond. Not that you two aren't connected in your own way, you're just connected in a more artificial and app kind of way. You're app connected. You know what I'm saying? You needed a little help from modern high-tech advances in computer science, whereas we just needed to spot each other across the room. Good old-fashioned eye contact is what we went with. No big deal. It doesn't make us more impressive or cooler or wildly more interesting. Just really, really natural and organic and connected to the beautiful rhythms of the earth and not the beep, 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 beep of some computer. You know what I'm saying? I mean, when you guys kiss, do you ever short out? I'm kidding there. But I will say, when we kiss, our deep internal and organic passion produces fresh kale. I was married long before dating apps came along. I'm not sure how I would have handled the dating app world, but I sure like to talk to people about their experiences with dating apps. I interviewed one 90-some-year-old woman and another one 88 who went on dating apps. In the case of the 88-year-old, she told me she was just looking, I can't say it with a straight face, but it's true. She told me she was just looking for sex. She just wanted sex, she said, and she got it. She got it. She was 88. I interviewed her, and then her friend was 93. The 93-year-old was looking for more of a companion. she said he kind of has to have his romantic interaction leaning against a wall. I didn't even know what that meant, but he's got some condition where he's got to lean against a wall. Sounded fun. But yeah, I pursued this one time as a podcast. So I was interested in the whole app thing. I would have liked to have met someone who dated the app itself, however. When are we moving to that day when you just date the app? Robert, how's it going with the dating app? Oh, I had a date. I went out last Saturday night. Oh, good. How'd it go? Oh, it was great. It was great. So these dating apps really can connect you, huh? Oh, I'm connected. Well, tell me about her. Oh, it's not a her. No, Bob, I didn't know. You never mentioned you were gay. That's great. No, it's not a guy either. I'm dating the app itself. I ended up dating the dating app. No one ever thinks to do that, but it's not called a dating app for nothing. I mean, you can date the app if you want to. I'm doing it. So, yeah, I went out with the app last Saturday night. And how was that, Robert? Well, you know how it is. You go to a bar, people see that I'm with the app, they all come up, they ask it for help with their own dating. You know, it's hard for me to get any alone time with the thing. Well, when you were alone, what did the two of you talk about? Frankly, the app's fears when it comes to getting under the covers and performing. It thinks it's going to be a real dud in the roll in the hay department. Well, Robert, isn't it in fact going to be a dud? Well, I don't know. I don't know. Depends on what a person is looking for, I suppose. I mean, what turns me on may be different from what turns other folks on, you know? My big thing when it comes to any kind of sex, my big thing is just, I don't even feel comfortable talking about this. We don't know each other well enough for me to tell you about my intimate desires. Come on, Bob! Well, all right. My big thing is just the brightness display in settings. On my iPhone, I like to turn down the brightness and then take it to the nighttime setting, which sort of alters the illumination and the colors, softens them a bit, and yet you can still see your phone screen. And then I like to pull all the covers over me, and I just get off on the weird glow under the sheets and covers, you know, that cool glow. I'm sorry, I was just thinking about it. My psychologist, by the way, says there's a name for this, but he can't remember what it is. Robert, when was the last time you had one of those organic dates people are talking about these days? Oh, I do not have time for those. That involves a lot of time, a lot of effort, a lot of patience. I don't have any of that. My big thing for a while was walking into a tavern with a megaphone, just climbing up on a bar stool and just saying to everyone, I'll be in the parking lot for the next 15 minutes. If someone wants to come out and date me, let's roll. If no one came out, I tore out of there, went to the next bar, boom, did it again. Kept that up for days. At one bar, a big gal finally did come out, motorcycle chick. Her name was Chuck. I remember. She called herself Chuck. She said we could go into the satellite biffy by the dumpster where I was there if we wanted a little privacy. But I told her I was trying to find a more organic situation, a thing where we went to movies, we went to dinner, and her next words were, I ain't got time for that. I ain't got time for that. She's like me, busy, 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 busy. Everyone's so busy. When my grandparents had their first date, they sat on a porch swing with lemonade for 2 hours, quietly staring straight ahead, didn't say a damn thing, didn't say anything. The second and third date, same thing, nothing. They said nothing. On the fourth date, my grandpa said hi. Then it was quiet again for a long time. Later on that year, they took a walk, and they stopped by the county fairgrounds, and my grandpa asked her to marry him. She said yes. It was the first time either of them had said more than hello or how's the lemonade. Yeah, she said yes, and they were married the next June. That's when she said I do, which were the 16th and 17th words she had ever said to him. When she said, I do. My grandpa said it was sort of like a meditative relationship, a study in togetherness minus the tangle of words. The tangle of words that do in so many couples. Just do them in. He said words can so often be the enemy. They can be misunderstood. They can have multiple meanings. They can often come with thoughtlessness. The quiet of a day, just being together but not saying anything, that can speak with a more calm authority and ultimately with more love then sang anything to one another. I don't know if he was right or wrong, but they stayed together 57 years. And on his deathbed, as he was slipping away, she said goodbye to him. And that was only the 73rd word she had ever uttered to him out loud in their years of marriage. And it startled him. It did. It startled him. And he almost jumped up. I mean, he was having his last breath, but he just kind of shot up like someone had used a defibrillator or something. He was momentarily hyper alert and energized. And he was able to say so long, before collapsing and his eyes glazing over and his breath ceasing altogether and those weird colors coming into his body. You've seen the colors people turn when they die, right? Yeah. 2 of those were her favorite color. She mentioned that later to me. Only the 9th and 10th word she ever said to me. After she died 2 years later, we all got a chance to read their diaries, which was nice. We learned that she really, really loved watching him work in the field, and that he liked smoking his pipe and watching her knit near the fireplace. And they both admitted to waking up in the middle of the night and enjoying watching the other sleep peacefully. They also liked watching the wind move through the other's hair when they were out for a walk, and they were really fond of seeing each other emerge from the bath with towels around them, fresh and clean. But they never did get into the whole talking thing. They would have been appalled at my megaphone approach at the bars, but not nearly as appalled as they would have been had they met Chuck. Oh, boy, there was a handful of women right there. Good God. I don't know. My grandparents were country people. I'm a city guy. Maybe I should move to the country. I hear, actually, that they have old-time country dating apps. The old country dating apps don't allow you to swipe left or right because they just present the one gal. Margaret, I think her name is. You pick her or nothing. Yeah, Margaret agrees to date you, but only if you keep your hands to yourself and have her home by 9. You have to meet her dad, too, and he lets you know if you'll be marrying her or not. Day 1. He tells you on day 1 whether that's going to happen or not. Sometimes he makes you wash his car first. Anyway, he talks up his daughter quite a bit while you're there. He really tries to make her sound like the catch of the year. Brags that she can juggle squirrel meat, stuff like that, that she can imitate the call of a badger. Then he looks to see if you're impressed. And if you're not, he makes you oil his rifle. You ever use the country dating app? Oh, yeah, it's just the one gal, Margaret. There's no swiping left or right. It's just Margaret. The first several dates are at the house, with the old man there, with him present as chaperone. You can often see Margaret's mom staring in from the kitchen, whispering to Margaret to sit up straight, Sit up straight, Margaret, and stop trying to catch the mice on the cabin floor. The old man will tell you Margaret is better at catching mice than any tomcat he's ever had. Then he looks to see if you're impressed. And if not, he makes you floss his teeth for him. That's when you start to list the pros and cons of this relationship. I mean, Margaret, she's a looker. But at the point you're flossing the old man's teeth just for not appreciating something, you're thinking about a city gal. In fact, you're looking for Chuck. She's by the satellite Biffy there with that other guy. Sometimes when I'm doing an ad, I think to myself, why would anybody believe me? Why not go find a review somewhere out there? Get the Yelp app and read a review of the company. This one's from Matt. I had the misfortune of a broken water heater that flooded my basement. Luckily, I was home and able to catch it before it really got bad. Morgan from MSP, Plumbing, Heating, and Air, came to my house within 20 minutes. And he was even willing to help move a bunch of things with me, which is above and beyond the call. He was able to find an installer, Nick, who was just getting done with another job in the area, and he came immediately. Nick got to work for preparation and had a delivery of a new water heater in the next 20 minutes. He also asked if I needed any help at all in the cleanup. Well, there we go. Forget my endorsement. Take Matt's endorsement. MSP, Minneapolis-St. Paul Plumbing, Heating, and Air. When you walk into North American Banking Company, you're not just opening an account. You're planning for your life. Your life. Maybe you're buying your first home, wondering if your dream neighborhood is within reach. Maybe you're starting a small business. You need a partner who understands your vision. North American Banking Company is your partner. They want to work with you. They understand you. You're not a number. You're their neighbor. Maybe you're just trying to make your hard-earned money work smarter for your family. That's what they're there for. At North American Banking Company, they got you. They'll help you find the right mortgage, the right loan, the right advice. Because your goals are unique. They're yours. Looking to save for college, retirement, the unexpected? Let North American Banking Company map it out for you. They know it's not just your money. It's your dreams, your plans, your future. Switching to North American Banking Company is easy. They have 6 locations in the Twin Cities. They're part of the community. As I said, they're your neighbor.
North American Banking Company. Member FDIC, Equal Housing Lender.
Well, let's go to the phones. Talk to a listener. What do we have here in the listener directory? Listeners who have allowed me to hang on to their phone numbers, to call them randomly. Who do we have? Round and round and round she goes. Where she stops, nobody knows. Bingo!
Hello.
Why, Jessica!
TD MISCHKE.
You got it right out of the chute! There's a lovely song written about you.
Is there?
Yes, you don't know of it?
I don't know of it.
Oh, that is so tragic. You have got to hear it. It's an instrumental.
Well, sing me a few bars.
It's an
Oh,
instrumental.
it's an instrumental?
Yeah.
Hum me a few bars.
It's copywritten material. We can't deliver that on this program. You ought to ask your little friend, do you have a little friend, an electronic gizmo, something that you hold in your hand and say, hey, play me Jessica. Could I hear the tune Jessica? Alexa, play me.
Apple Music.
Yeah.
I'll look it up on Apple Music.
Say, I'm Jessica. Play me that song Jessica. And let me know if you like it. What am I catching you doing?
I am just finishing my workday.
I love that. Ready for
Yes.
a cold one, are you?
I'm more than ready.
Boy, let me guess what you do for a living, and I'm going to base this on intuition and the tone in your voice. You work at a computer.
I do, yes. Too much.
But now what do you do at that computer? Data analysis?
Oh, no.
What are you doing at that computer?
I work for an orthopedic surgeon, and I take care of his clinic.
Do you ever mess up in such a way where someone is killed?
No, not a once, never, never.
But were that to happen, do you have a way to kind of sweep it under the rug?
You know, I'm going to have to ask the head chief what we do in that situation.
Well, hopefully he's watched The Verdict. The Paul Newman movie, just a wonderful movie. If you haven't seen it, see it. The doc makes a mistake. He's been up since early in the morning. He's very tired. He makes a mistake, reads the chart wrong. Anyway, he puts a woman in a persistent vegetative state, all because he misread the chart. And he gets the nurse to cover it up. Yeah, this is where I think you could learn a few things. Watch The Verdict. Might help you out later down the line. When you were a child, say 9, what did you want to be when you grew up?
I wanted to be a chef.
A chef?
And I went to culinary arts school.
You did?
And I started working in restaurants. But when you're a 19-year-old female working overnight in restaurants, it's a bit cagey.
Creeps? Creeps? Are we talking
creeps?
Creeps?
Creeps galore, yes.
What the hell is wrong with this world?
I got out for that reason, and I knew one day I wanted to have kids, and working overnights wasn't gonna work.
Yeah, I used to be in that business. I used to book music at a music club, and I'd be there late, and it was a full bar and restaurant, and I'd see the shenanigans, and I'd see the
Mm-hmm.
unhealthy lifestyle. It was a young person's game. It was wild. After closing time, there were some fun stories, things that happened. Things got a little weird, and, if you're 24, weird is good. So you ended up having a family?
Yes,
All
I
right.
did.
What is this family? Describe them.
2 teenage daughters and the most incredible husband you could ever hope for.
Wow, really? Because I talked
Yes.
to another woman recently who said she got that guy. Wow.
No, she's wrong.
You got him. And where'd you
I got
find him? Was it prison visiting hours, or where the hell did you find him?
Match.com.
Wait a minute. That's not organic.
No, it's not. Meeting people organically, I don't think is safe anymore.
It's not safe to date organically anymore.
I don't
Wow.
think so. The way people are these days, a healthy bit of skepticism, I think, is important for females to have.
And how long before the guy you're with now passed the test? How long before you said, I'm going to date him freely and comfortably? How long?
We talked for about 3 weeks over the phone and FaceTime and messaging and whatnot before we actually got together in person.
What's going on in these calls?
Just getting to know each other, deal breakers for things that will turn us the other way. I'm big on sense of humor. I want somebody that can make me laugh without trying really hard and just being naturally funny. And he had me laughing from the minute we started talking, and that's very important to me. And that was one of the big reasons that I kept talking to him, was he was so funny right off the bat.
What was your deal breaker?
Lying is a deal breaker. Cheating is off the table completely. You aren't going to yell at me. And that's really about it.
How many years ago did you marry?
Coming up on 5.
And you have 2 teenage daughters?
Mm-hmm.
So they're from a different marriage?
Yes,
That one, he hit the deal breaker button
several times.
several times. That bastard. Was that off a dating app, or was that organic?
Organic.
Well. So much for organic.
Yep.
And what was the magic app you used? Let's do an ad for them. What app was it?
Match.com.
Match.com, people. How many people did you have to have phone calls with before you met Mr. Right?
Only one that I seriously talked to and then realized pretty quick he got weird.
That transition to weirdness fascinates me.
It was pretty sudden. He just mentioned that he lived with his parents and never lived by himself and never planned on not living with his parents.
Oh. I
So you
wonder
can
how
see
he's
why.
doing these days. I wonder if he ever did
I
find
think
a
he's living
gal.
with his parents.
Kenny Rogers sang, "There's someone for everyone, and Tommy's love was Becky." So if there is someone for everyone, and this guy finally found someone, I wonder if it went like this. Well, I'm going to live with my parents the rest of my life. I've been looking for a guy like that.
Like you.
My
Yeah.
name's Shock. I'm a biker gal.
I hope he is happy and found somebody that is willing to accept that plan.
What if he was the funniest man you ever talked to, though? What if it was a belly laugh a minute every time you spoke with him? You might have said, okay, but let's check out those parents first. If I'm going to live with them, are they in the same bedroom?
I think the best sense in the humor in the world. Went to work there.
Do you have any girlfriends you know who have had different experiences than yours?
Yes, and similar. I've had friends that it has worked for, and I have friends that spent like a week on it and said, no, thank you. I think when you're a female on those type of apps, you have a different experience than when you're a male, because within 2 hours of signing up, I had probably 25 messages from men. And I know male friends that have used it, and they'll go, 2 weeks and get like 3 messages from females. It's not an even distribution of males to females, or at least that are willing to reach out. And so I think that plays into some of them just saying this is overwhelming and I'm not getting the type of people that I'm actually interested in, so I'm done. And then I think others just look at it and kind of want that instant connection, and you don't really get that over a message or a phone call. For a lot of people, they have to see someone in person to get that connection.
So the woman who bailed after a week, she probably also had all these guys contacting her.
Yes.
But she didn't like that?
No, it was overwhelming.
Wow, overwhelming. I don't know how this works, but I assume you can not respond to anybody you don't want to respond to, right?
Oh, absolutely. Yep, you just say not interested, and then it doesn't send them a message that you're not interested. It just kind of falls off, and then they can't contact you again. Okay.
So she might have looked at one where the guy sounded pretty good. But she said, I don't care. There's too many guys here. I can't think. There's too much noise.
Yes.
Well, I've delighted in talking to you. I'm so glad you took the time. I appreciate it. Did you start out by telling me you're at work?
Just finished working. Came outside to talk to you.
Okay. Well, I'm sure glad you did.
I've been a fan since you were on AM 1500. Your Edmund Fitzgerald interview was a thing of beauty. I listen to it often just when I'm feeling down. That sealed the deal for a lifelong MISCHKE fan.
All right. Well, I'm glad I did it then. Hope to talk to you again sometime. Have a great rest of your day.
God bless, MISCHKE. Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye. Since Johnny Kennedy was president, Fury Motors has been doing one thing differently: selling cars. They sell them the Fury way. Have you ever encountered the Fury way? What? You haven't? What the heck's wrong with you people? It's about your life, your ride. At Fury, what they are is smart, and your experience with them is unforgettable. You'll walk in, you'll feel like you just joined a secret club where horsepower meets heart. Fury doesn't just sell cars. They spark your life. They start adventures. They help people laugh, dream, drive off their lot feeling like legends. No one else has been doing it the Fury way for over 6 decades. No one. So if you want the same old car buying routine, blah, 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 keep going where you're going. If you want a story, a thrill, and a vehicle that feels like it was made for you and you alone, you know where to go. Fury Motors. Feel the Fury way. Glasses. So many people need them. But let's be honest, most optical stores, boring. You like how I say that? Boring. I made that up. Yeah, those other shops have a take a number and wait vibe. I don't like that. Not Spectacle Shop. Spectacle Shop has 4 locations in the Twin Cities: Grand Avenue in St. Paul, Uptown Minneapolis, St. Louis Park, New Brighton. But it's not about where Spectacle Shop is. It's about what happens when you walk in. They craft their own lenses in-house. They tackle the most complicated prescriptions, and they make them perfect. Not kind of good, perfect. Vintage frames, they have them more than anyone else in North America. Designer frames no one else in this region of the country has? Check. Style that turns heads and makes people say, hey, can I ask where you got those glasses? Double check. Voted best eyewear shop in Minnesota 5 years running by readers of the Star Tribune. Come see Spectacle Shop, because your eyes deserve more than ordinary. Time to lasso the next topic. And what a topic it is. Rope. The name of the book is Rope. R-O-P-E. What's it about? Rope. Come on, it can't just be about rope, can it, MISCHKE? You're doggone right it can be. Rope. That's the name of this book, How a Bundle of Twisted Fibers Became the Backbone of Civilization. Ha ha ha! Tim Queenie is the author, and I welcome him to the show now.
Thanks for having me, Tommy.
You are where right now?
I am in southern Maine, right near Portland, Maine.
And for a guy who likes to sail, that's a fine place to be, I imagine.
It is indeed. We have Casco Bay and Penobscot Bay, and it's a fabulous coast.
Is sailing the sole reason you have written this book? By that I mean, if you weren't a sailor, would this ever have entered your consciousness?
I don't think so. I don't think I would have going down this road because it was really prompted by all the ropes that we had on our boats as I was growing up. And after my dad passed away, I had some ropes from him, and one day I was going to use one for something here at the house, and I saw the knot in it, and I thought, wow, my dad tied that knot. I can't untie that knot. I got to keep it. And that got me thinking about rope. In fact, I hung the piece of rope up on the wall, and as I said, that's what made me start thinking about rope and its significance, not only in my family, but just all through history. And did some research and found that no one has ever written a book about rope. So that seemed like a pretty good reason to go forward.
Do you have any sense at all of when you can say people were first routinely using rope?
Well, that's a fascinating question, Tommy, because I ask people all the time about what they think the oldest rope is, oldest found rope ever discovered is. What do you think the oldest is?
Well, I know because I read your book. I believe it's
right.
50,000 years.
That's right, 50,000 years old. So what that essentially means is that Neanderthals were making rope. Of course, this was discovered in a cave in southeastern France near the Rhone River, and it just happened to survive. It's a small piece of cordage, but it just happened to survive all this time, stuck to the bottom of this rock. But a lot of the rope that was made was, of course, all of it back then was made from natural fibers and plant fibers, and almost all of it has rotted away. So we really don't know how far back rope goes until perhaps someone makes an even older discovery.
Since it's so hard for rope to not disintegrate over even a short period of time, it could be twice, 3 times, 4 times as old. We don't know, right?
That's right. And I'm sure you've been walking through the woods and seen places where you see vines that are naturally have grown together, interlocking helix-like strands. I'm sure that one thing we know about ancient humans is they didn't have the technology that we have, but they were equally as smart or nearly as smart as we are. And they were great observers of their environment. And certainly they saw those intertwined vines and thought, maybe I could do that. I could actually make something of my own along those lines.
I want to leap to where rope is being used most intensely, most dramatically, where it's ubiquitous, where everyone knows what rope is. It's really coming into its own as one of the most important things in any culture, and where that really explodes is in sailing.
That's correct. Yeah, the maritime use of rope all through history has just been absolutely key. Going back to the Egyptians, for example, they did not build boats the way people in Western societies or later societies, the way we build boats and the way Europeans build boats, where you use a keel and then you build frames or ribs and then you attach planks to that. Egyptians stitched their planks together. They took the planks and pulled all the boat together using rope. The primary way the boats were held together was with rope. And then you also have rope for the standing rigging, which is the lines that hold the mast up. And then you need it for the running rigging, lines that control the sails, the yard arms, and the sails.
There's a point at which ropes are going all over the place and they're doing 100 different things, and everybody has to be aware of what this rope does versus that rope. And if you pull on that one, you might destroy us, but you pull on that one, you might save us. I mean, it becomes in sailing so critical to understand ropes to such a degree that without thinking, you know which one to grab when. To make any kind of mistake is to perhaps be in peril you'll never escape from.
That's absolutely right. That's a great point. The young sailors, when they were, quote, learning the ropes, they had to know all that. And they had to know if it was dark at night and during a storm and they were told to go loosen a certain halyard, they needed to know where that halyard was and only loosen that halyard. I talked to an archivist at the New Bedford's Whaling Museum, and he said that on a standard whale ship from the 1840s, you had to know the 117 different rigging ropes. Absolutely essential that you know what every one of those things did so that you could perform properly in under tough conditions.
all the things that needed to be done, and they got better and better and better and more sophisticated and more sophisticated. But that meant these ruffians, these rogues, these sailors had to be geniuses of sorts.
Yeah, they really did. I mean, I've sailed on a square rig vessel out of Rhode Island called the Oliver Hazard Perry, and that one's rigged just like any 19th century sailing ship that you would see. It was really humbling, and I'm someone who grew up sailing on small boats, so I mean I know the basics, but the complexity on these bigger vessels is just, and not to mention the force involved. You need yourself and 10 of your best friends to be hauling together to pull on this, because the forces are just tremendous.
By the way, it is in fact where we get the phrase learning the ropes, right? That goes back to
Right.
16th century or who knows,
Yeah.
somewhere back then. It's about a sailor learning those ropes.
Absolutely. Yeah. Not only did they have to know all these lines and what line to pull on, but in terms of the warships like the USS Constitution, they had to do that while people were shooting at them.
Yeah.
Sail the ship while being shot at. Sort of mind-blowing.
One of the things in the book Rope that I appreciated, because it allowed me to ask someone a question I've wanted to ask long before I ever got a hold of your book. What is the deal with all the knots? It's ridiculous to me how many knots there are. How many knots do you figure these guys had to know?
That's a very good question. I'm not sure exactly. I would
Roughly.
say probably in the vicinity of 100. Of course, there's so many more than that.
And there's so
even.
many more than that. Couldn't they got by with about a quarter of those? I can't even figure out coming up with them. Was there a guy in a lab somewhere that was known as the knot guy?
They didn't have any TV. They didn't have any internet. When they were
what
off
they
watch,
did.
they had to, and a lot of them were illiterate, so they weren't able to read. So they had to do something when they were off watch. Knot tying and passing on knot knowledge to your fellow sailors was a huge thing. And they also used knots for decorative purposes. They would decorate parts of the boat, and they would also decorate their own sea chests and their ditty bags. They put various knots on them. In fact, it was a way of demonstrating, of advertising, as a way of demonstrating they knew what they were doing. And so when they're going to go to aboard another ship, the captain or the first mate could see that these guys, as they came aboard, they knew their knots.
I don't even know how to ask this question because I think it would just go on too long. But there are only a handful of things I can think of that knots need to do.
Mm-hmm.
I think if I got to 5, I'd be all done thinking about what knots need to do in terms of what they're meant to do. So
Right.
when we're at hundreds or however many knots there are, can you think of some far distant thing that is outside my consciousness that a knot needs to do that I would never have thought of?
What about what knot are you going to use to, after you furl up the sail and you want to keep it in place? Well, what do you use? Well, you actually use something called a reef knot.
Couldn't one of the other knots hold that sail up?
Well, the great thing about a reef knot is that it's a type of square knot, but it allows you to instantly get rid of the knot by pulling on the free end, and that knot comes out easily. If you were to tie a bowline, for example, around each part of the sail, it'd take a lot longer to untie all those bowlines. So this was a very effective knot, but also a knot that was easy to sort of get rid of when you wanted to get that sail up.
I bought a book years ago called The Book of Knots. I decided after having it a week that what it was really good for was if I'm ever incarcerated, I was going to bring that with me. And that's what I was going to spend my time in prison doing, learning knots. I just found in your book a passage where you say Clifford Ashley's book, first published in 1944, contains a dizzying array of more than 3,800 knots, 7,000 illustrations.
It's truly the Bible of knots.
I was fascinated by the rope factories. Again, when you get to the point, say the 19th century sailing world, and these gigantic buildings, these huge factories that are necessary for rope construction because of how long rope is, the space they need.
These buildings were called rope walks. To make a really long rope, you need a really long building to twist it all together. There's one actually at the Boston Navy Yard that's 1,300 feet long. They still demonstrate how rope was made.
By 1788, the city of Boston had 14 working rope walks, and the job of a rope maker outnumbered any other class of mechanic. Early on the morning of July 30th, 1794, the concentration of rope walks along Pearl Street turned disastrous. And then this must be from some publication back then. Wednesday morning about 4 o'clock, the melancholy cry of fire grated on the ears of our citizens. The fire caught in the rope walk of Mr. Howe by accident in heating some tar. When it was over, the fire had destroyed 7 rope walks, the whole stock of hemp, cordage, tar, and the rope walks, and it had destroyed a total of 96 buildings. Guy working with tar, which I assume was a preserving chemical on the rope. Is that right?
Pine tar, not asphalt, not petroleum tar.
Pine tar, okay.
So tar was for waterproofing the hemp. Most of this rope was, at this point, was being made from hemp, which is a superb fiber for making rope, but it will rot if it gets wet. So you want to try to make it as water resistant as possible by dragging the finished rope through a big tub of tar, and that makes it much more resistant to water ingress.
And this guy, this poor guy, maybe got a little careless, I don't know, starts a little fire, isn't able to get it out right away, and before long, he's probably looking to move to some other town. I don't know that he wanted to hang out there after that. That would have been a tough one to live with. Your money does not like sitting around waiting for you. It does not like sitting there politely, sipping coffee, thinking about what its future is going to offer. No, your money would like to work. And if your money is not working, you are losing. Enter Mr. Josh Arnold. Over 40 years helping Minnesotans make their money move, grow, do stuff. Retirement plans, yes, sir. Investments, absolutely. Advice that makes sense, hee-haw! And here's the kicker. You can call Josh right now at 952-925-5608, and you can get 48 minutes. Yes, 48 glorious minutes, absolutely free. No obligation. Hang up afterwards. Forget about him if you want to, but I don't think it's going to go that way.
Investment services offered by Josh Arnold Investment Consultant, LLC, a security and investment advisor. Past performance is no guarantee of future results. All investments involve risk. Tommy Mischke is a paid endorser.
At Wellshire Residential Memory Care in Bloomington and Medina, they don't just provide care, they provide life, real life, energetic life, life full of music, full of laughter, and the little joys that make every day matter. Imagine a memory care center with a town square environment where residents stroll past ice cream shops that tempt their taste buds, or a cinema for movie night, or a salon and barber shop for style and connection. Imagine courtyards full of sun, gardens to wander, music therapy with professional musicians who actually love playing for you. The Wellshire has 4 different quadrants tailored to every stage of memory care. But what really makes the Wellshire special, their staff. They stay. There's not turnover. They love what they do. They care, they connect, they bring joy to every single day. When your loved one is there, your loved one is loved. Wellshire Residential Memory Care. Life, laughter, love every day. I want to jump to the use of rope when it comes to criminals. You spend some time in the book talking about the simple use of rope to deal with someone who had committed a crime, binding the hands of prisoners. A person with their hands bound, especially behind the back, is less able to make a nuisance for his or her captors. The immobilization of the hands could also be done with iron manacles, but those were expensive, not as easy to carry around. So you get into talking about, is it somewhere in Asia where
Yes.
how the hands are tied is how you know which crime they committed?
Yes, it's called Hohojutsu, a whole school of knot tying for apprehending people. Not only were you supposed to tie the person up in a certain way, you were supposed to use certain knots, and it all depends upon their status in society. So if you were apprehending a samurai general, you definitely did not use the same knots and the same binding method as you would for like a common criminal. And if you did, and that samurai general ever got free, he'd probably come after you for dishonoring him.
There was a lot of time spent talking about the use of rope as punishment. These guys sailing in the 17th, 18th century, I don't think I'd want to be a sailor. I don't care if it was a decent paying job. I don't care if I loved the ocean. The punishment of getting whipped for the tiniest infraction just seems over the top. Sometimes if you were singing, you needed a lashing. We don't
right.
sing here, boy. Get that shirt off. People just got flogged routinely.
It's really very brutal. There were different levels of it. There was being flogged, but with the cat o' nine tails. And then there was also the fact that the watch officer on deck, he would carry a single piece of rope with a knot at the end of it. And he didn't even need even the barest breaking of rules to use that thing on any sailor he felt wasn't working fast enough. He could just casually whip them across the back with it if they weren't moving.
There was one punishment where you were flogged on the ship where the crime occurred, and then it was, well, fella, we're now going to take you around to every other vessel in this area and flog you in front of them to send the message to them that this is what happens. So there'd be multiple trips and visits to other ships for additional flogging. I don't know how some of these guys were alive afterward.
Yeah, it is amazing. I mean, what they could put up with, because you'd think it would be that level of attack would be very difficult to come back from.
And lastly, why I wouldn't have wanted to have been a professional hired sailor in those days. Let's see if I can get through this. Keel hauling involved tying a sailor to a length of rope that was then reeved through a block at the end of the mainsail. The poor sailor had a weight tied to him and was then dropped into the water to be dragged under the ship, where his skin could be lacerated by sharp barnacles and his head could be clonked on the hull of the ship. He also, of course, needed to hold his breath the entire time until he was pulled out of the water on the opposite side of the vessel. I have a sneaking suspicion they killed most of them.
Oh, you would think so. That's a pretty brutal thing to do.
I mean, it just was rough. And I mean, really rough. I was reading some stories of people, they stole a rabbit and made the mistake of stealing it in England in 1842. And the lashes and the lashes and the lashes for this rabbit theft.
Also, the use of rope for hanging people, the famous British bloody code. There was a time when just about anything that you did in terms of criminality was sufficient to get you hanged. That was another nasty use of rope.
First English colonist to be hanged in North America, David Frank, hanged in 1623 for the god-awful crime of stealing a calf in Virginia. They were ready to hang you for anything. And,
Right.
Of course, you go through all the history of hanging in terms of it did get more sophisticated over time. And, of course, there you get into things like knots. And then there was one scene in your book where I think it's nearing the end of hanging. I think this is in the United States. 20,000 people attend to hanging.
Yeah, public hangings, right.
20,000.
Yeah.
Can't fathom that. Somewhere along the line, someone must have said, this isn't a good look for us right here.
Right, exactly. Yeah.
I also found myself focusing on this story later in the book. You talk about Philippe Petit, the Frenchman who snuck up to the top of one of the World Trade Center buildings in what has to be one of the great capers of all time. This fella, from a very, very young age, dreamed of stretching a cable between the buildings known as the World Trade Center towers and tight roping across to the other side, not once, but multiple times. In order to do that, he'd have to do it illegally. In order to do it illegally, he'd have to plan. He'd have to get some helpers. Now, there had to be 150 ways of getting caught and maybe one way of not getting caught. And he found out the one way and got to pull this off. All the rigging, all the apparatus he had to get up to the top without being noticed, having to camp up there overnight, having to have helpers on the other building, having to have an arrow shot, using a bow and arrow shot from one building to the other with a tiny little bit of fishing line so that they could start with that and then pull a thicker fishing line and then string and then rope and then the cable and get it all connected and be able to have him walking out there on that tightrope by whatever 7 a.m. that day in New York City so many years ago back in the 70s. That was a remarkable passage to read.
That was so much fun for me because I did a FaceTime with Philippe. He's 74. I did this interview with him. He's 74 now, and I asked him, so Philippe, do you still walk on the wire? And he said, oh, yes, just came down 2 hours ago.
I interviewed him myself, but not about this story. I interviewed him about a book he wrote on creativity. He put out a book several years ago on creativity, and I interviewed him on that topic. But I was traveling in New York at the time, and I went up to upstate New York, and I found his place, and I interviewed him there. And sure enough, outside in his yard, 15 feet off the ground, was a tightrope that maybe went 50 yards. He just kept doing that every day. I don't think he does any big tightrope walks anymore. I'm not 100% sure, but I don't think so. But he has that wire in his backyard. And, when he says, I just got off the wire, I'm assuming he was on that.
Yes, he was. And I don't know if he told you, but that's one half of the wire that he used, the 3/4 inch wire rope that he used to cross the World Trade Center that day in August 1974. After he was arrested by the police, the New York City police pulled all the gear back across to one of the towers and assembled all of it and gave it all back to him. So he had the original wire, and so that's part of it is what he has set up in his yard.
150 years earlier, he'd have been hanged.
Right, exactly.
No, that was the ultimate slap on the wrist. I mean, it was completely illegal, the whole thing, the trespassing, all of it, and if he would have fallen off and died, the trauma for everyone below. But what did they tell him? They said afterward, for punishment, why don't you go entertain some children with a little tightrope walk somewhere and we'll call it even. Here's all your stuff back. You're quite a guy.
When I talked to him, I asked him, I had to ask him this. I said, so Philippe, you were 1,350 feet in the air. Was it frightening? Were you scared? And he said, oh, well, it was very frightening, but I wasn't scared.
I underlined that. It was terrifying, but I wasn't scared. Wait a minute. I'm going to have to pause and think about that. What does he mean? But he obviously couldn't have been too scared because I would have made it across once and said, wow, I pulled it off. I did it. I can't believe it. I'm alive and I did this dream from my childhood. But he says, let's keep doing it. This is fun. Doesn't he do it 8 times?
Yeah, he goes back and forth 8 times and he was actually sort of taunting the police because they said, "Come, you need to come off the wire right now." And he walked toward them, and they were about to grab him, and he turned around and walked back the other way. He also lay down on the wire.
He laid down, and that's where I said, "Okay, I don't know if this is where you want to show off, but by golly, that is showing off, and that's something else."
Yeah,
that's when you know he's feeling a little comfortable.
Right.
This book, Rope, goes off in so many different directions. We can't scratch the surface. You got into the rodeo. I was fascinated by the days of the cowboys and rope. I had forgotten that it was is the term, what's the pronunciation of is it vaqueros?
The vaqueros, yeah.
The vaqueros were the first cowboys, right?
That's correct, yeah.
So the first cowboys ever were Mexican, and most of our cowboys are presentation taken from the Mexicans.
That's right, yeah. The fellows that I talked to, they openly said that this all started with the vaqueros, definitely.
They are these master cowboys, these Mexican guys and ropers. And again, once you decided to write this book, once you learned no one had written this book, and I still can't believe no one had written this book, once you decided to do that, It wasn't a question of, is there going to be enough material? It's where do you cut yourself off?
Oh, yes. I mean, my first draft, I was way over the word length that my publisher allotted to me. So I had to go back and unfortunately cut quite a bit because I had way more than I needed. And I could have gone on way beyond that.
The book is Rope, How a Bundle of Twisted Fibers Became the Backbone of Civilization. Tim Queeny is the author, and I'm delighted to have had this opportunity to visit with you.
This has been the most fun interview I've done. I mean, you're obviously very knowledgeable and take a fun approach to it. So that was great. That was really fun.
Fun for me as well. All my best to you. And thank you, folks, for listening. I'll talk to you again next time. And just remember, when you reach the end of your rope, just tie a knot and hang on. Okay. All right. That's pretty good what I did there. I liked that. You guys like that? Yeah, that was great, Tommy.